everyone, welcome to That Pedal Show. Dan here.
Mick here, hello.
It's going to be a journey today, Mick.
More than a feeling.
Indeed. I've been...
Please tell me that was journey.
More than a feeling is Boston.
Okay, there you go. Awesome.
I've been playing around with stereo chorus the past few months, and I've gone down a rabbit hole, and there's no way back. So I wanted to go through so you guys understand what stereo chorus actually is. There's a few different levels to it. And once you understand what it's doing, then you can start working out the best way to approach it in your rig. But before we do that, some housekeeping. First of all, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed. And also a massive thank you to anyone that's gone to thatpedalshowstore.com and grabbed some merchandise.
Yes, please do that. That's the main way we fund this show. And also head to thatpedalshop.com in the USA and Canada if you want to buy some pedals. Right, enough of that.
Enough of that stuff.
Enough of sales talk,
Okay.
Daniel. It is a potential source of confusion, isn't it? Because right from the top, I think we're going to start by asking what chorus is.
Yep.
And demonstrate that. After that, there are plenty of pedals that are called stereo chorus, but might not necessarily be stereo in the way that you think they are.
It depends on, so it all comes down to how you define what stereo is.
Which is what we're going to get into. In addition, I did a short just recently, a YouTube short, which was try a really short delay.
I love your shorts, by the way. They're very nice.
Try a really short delay. And the biggest comment that came back off that short, so it's about a really short delay, a 40 millisecond delay, was, that's just chorus.
Yeah.
Why?
Well,
It's not, by the way.
it's not. It's chorus uses a delay, but it's a modulated delay, and 40 milliseconds is very long
Yeah.
for a chorus. So 25-ish.
So explain to us how chorus is created then.
Okay. Chorus is created by having your direct signal, and on top of that, we have a modulated signal.
So you split the direct signal. That goes through unsullied.
Yep.
And the other side of it gets...
Modulated. So the other side goes through a delay line of some description. In the very late 60s, 1969, the very first bucket brigade device was invented. And after that, the first devices to use it were flanges. But what it meant was we had a way, without using tape, to delay our signal. And with a chorus, when we delay that signal, if we start changing the delay time, it gives us our modulation. So let me quickly demonstrate.
I think that's the bit. If you haven't got your head around this already, that's the bit that's the first bit to grasp is what you perceive as a pitch modulation is actually a modulation of delay time.
Yes, indeed. So we've got 3 amps today. For the most part, we're going to be using the outside pair of Rev D20s.
I'll get out of the way so you can see. Got Rev D20s here, and they're both on the barefaced audio, barefaced cabs, and then there's a Fender bass breaker.
Because it wouldn't be us if we didn't put a direct thing in the middle, right?
Yeah, wet, dry, wet.
Yeah. So let's start this conversation by having a look at what chorus is, and there's a really interesting concept to get across. Okay, so we've got the Boss CU2 Wazza, and it works in the same way as the original Boss C1 from 1976, and I just happen to have one here. So I've had this since I was 20 flair, and it's a glorious thing. But you can see even back in the mid 70s or 76, they had these 2 outputs on it, right? And so if you're only using one amplifier, which majority of us were using, we would plug into the mono output. And what happens in the mono output is that your direct sound and your modulator sound are mixed together. When you plug 2 outputs, it takes the direct sound out of the mono output and puts it on a separate output. So you've got 2 different signals. So the C2 works in the same way. The original CE2 only has a single output.
Yeah.
where they're both mixed all the
Yeah.
time.
I was looking around because there's one on the wall over there. I was like, has I got 2 outputs? Only one.
So here's how that sounds. We've got the C2. I've got that split left and right, and they're going to the outside 2 amplifiers. So that sounds like this. So nothing else on there. It's just the chorus going to the 2 amplifiers. Now, if I turn off the amp behind me, then I turn off the amp behind Mick,
Sorry, go on.
yeah. So we hear on the right-hand side is the direct signal,
No modulation.
no modulation. And on the left-hand side, modulation.
Just listen to that waveform just for a second. So it's pitch vibrato, and it's created by modulating delay time. Yeah. It's always a shocker to hear the C2 because it's so severe, isn't it?
Yeah. When we were in Denmark with Tor and is working it, I took the C1 over to see if we could do a tone print.
Do a tone print, yeah.
And listening to the direct output of it, and it's because you think this chorus is going to be lovely, smooth, modulated. It really isn't.
It's not a straight sine wave, is
No,
it?
it's not. There's it's like a triangle with almost like a sawtooth thing going on
I
there.
appreciate that straight sine wave is a bit of an oxymoron, but you know what I meant.
Exactly. So when we come out of the C2 and we go left and right, that's what we get. We get the direct sound out of one side and the modulated sound out of the other.
Yeah.
So that's this. Now, if I mix those 2 outputs together and then go into the same amplifier, so like a dual mono thing, we get this. So when I originally planned this board out, I thought I'll do it using mixers and stuff, and I'll try and make it as visual as possible. It got so complicated. It just made sense to do it all in G3. But what we'll do, I'll put some diagrams on
diagrams
the screen,
will be on
so that
screen,
you can
yeah.
see what's going on. So all I've done there is I've taken those 2 outputs and I've mixed them together.
Yeah.
All right. Now this is really important because that's if you're only using one amplifier, that's what happens internally.
Yeah, that's
right?
what you get out of
Output A.
output A.
Exactly.
Which is how most of us use it most of the time. It's mixed, exactly as it would be in an original C2, which has only got one output.
Yep. But in stereo, and it just goes, wow. Now, before I move on, I just want to quickly discuss something and why that gives us this separation. If I remove all of the modulation, right, I'm going to turn all the modulation off completely. And you'll think, well, okay, there's no modulation there. What is that going to do? So if I turn the
I'll
C2
turn it
off,
on while you play.
okay, so this is the 2 amps just on by themselves. So even that gives you a sense of separation, right? And it's so interesting. It's something called the Haas Effect, Haas. And a lot of producers use it. And let's say you've got a big, thick guitar, right in the middle of the mix. and you've got a vocal in the middle of the mix, and you're having a hard time finding out where the vocal sits. You know, what a lot of producers will do, they'll duplicate that guitar track, and they'll move one guitar track, 10 milliseconds or whatever, further on. And it gives this sense of space. And what happens is that vocal in the middle tends to sit a lot better.
Yeah, it's not dissimilar to the automatic double tracking, except that was more randomized. This is a straight, extremely short doubling delay, which rewind is why all those comments on that short said, that's just chorus. It's the beginning of chorus before you start modulating.
Yeah.
Can I try that with a bit of overdrive?
Of course.
So I'll play a sort of chunky thing. Dan will turn the C2 on. Bearing in mind we're just coming left and out of the two outside amps.
Two outside amps, and you can see on the C2, there's no modulation there. The depth and rate are at zero.
Zero. What's this overdrive pedal?
This is from Barber Electronics. A few months ago, a lovely gentleman turned up to one of our experience days, and he had an old Barber tone press EQ. And I plugged into it and I just went, that is delicious. I'll have one of those. So I got in touch with Barber, and I ordered that from them, and it turned up, and it is just awesome.
Awesome. Well, let's see.
So even doing something as simple as that, and I'll just demonstrate it one more way. We'll do the same thing, but if I go here, I've done the same thing with the delay. I've just moved the delay on, like, I think 20 milliseconds on one side.
So this is a stereo delay.
Yep.
And you've got one side set to what, 339 milliseconds?
No, one side is off.
Right.
And the other side is
20 milliseconds.
Set to 20 milliseconds.
Okay, cool. So that the display on the top there is not displaying the right thing. It is at 20 milliseconds.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So, the Haas Effect, right? You get this, it's the same signal, but one's just moved a little bit forward. And
1949, Helmut Haas. Wrote his PhD on it.
Oh, awesome.
I Wikipedia'd it.
Oh, well done.
Also, it gets mentioned in the same breath as the Precedence Effect, which was Wallach from 1949, and Lothar Kramer, The Law of the First Wavefront.
Nice.
Yeah.
As opposed to the law of the first Y-front.
Yeah.
Which
Get a whiff of my pant leg, baby. Blues explosion! Look, just as a small tangent.
Yeah.
I heard that earlier.
Yes.
Can you turn the centre ramp on? Can I just do that again? Turn
Absolutely.
the centre ramp. This is just a complete tangent. I feel a bit like how was it, Bach Senior and Junior?
Right.
Or Strauss Senior and Junior. One would play like a major scale and leave it on the seventh.
So like,
and the other one would have to come down and finish
it off.
And I feel a bit like that.
Okay.
Thanks for that, Dan.
Yeah, you're very welcome. So, and we'll get into a little bit more of that
Yeah,
later.
yeah,
because
yeah.
it's so much fun, but it is epic, right?
When we were setting up, we had the center amp going, and I was just like, I just need to just remind myself how glorious that sounds.
Yeah, it's a magic thing. Okay, so let's call that our first level, all right? Where we have the signal splits, we have modulation on one side and direct on the other.
It's wet-dry, isn't it?
This is wet-dry. It's as basic wet-dry as
They
it
call it
gets.
stereo chorus, just as they did in the C5.
Yeah. Still the same thing.
It's wet-dry.
It's wet-dry. It's wet-dry.
Yep.
Okay. The second level of stereo chorus. So beta past the first level. Boop, beep, boop, 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 up, and
Bing.
you've gone down the little pipe, Mario Brothers, and it's like, level 2. So this is the reissue of the stereo chorus flanger from TC Electronic. So what the TC does, when you come out of the left and right outputs, right, for stereo, you still have direct signal on both outputs. Okay, so what I'm going to do...
Just to reiterate, on the C2 Wazza, you don't have that. Or the C1, you have affected out of one and dry out of the other.
Exactly.
But now we've got dry out of both.
Exactly. So what I'm going to do, I want you to play, and I'm going to go and I turn on the stereo chorus flanger, and I'm going to turn one amp on, and I'm going to turn the other amp on, and you will hear direct and modulation out of both sides. Okay.
Let's play some chords. Play the TPS opening chord.
So you hear there's direct sound and there's modulation sound out of both sides. Now, watch what happens when you put left and right on together.
It's not the same modulation.
It is the same modulation, exactly out of phase.
Right.
So this is so interesting and really, really clever. The modulation inside the pedal, instead of when you plug in the second output, instead of it separating the modulator from the dry, it sends the modulation to the second output through a phase inverter, right?
Right.
So it's basically when you have like an op amp and you can make a simple buffer. You can also make a really simple phase inverter, which is basically what it goes through. So it gives you the direct sounds are still in phase, but the modulation on the left and right hand side are out of phase.
That's a really important point, right? Because if the dry sound was out of phase, you'd get phase cancellation.
Absolutely.
But because it's the modulated sounds that are out of phase and they're being modulated, no problem.
It's no problem.
Well, less problem.
In stereo.
Yeah.
So what happens is that depth control we have on the C2 is now called a width control. Right? So what I'll do, you play and I'll turn the width up and I'll go up and down and you'll feel the space, right?
So this is affecting the stereo field, yeah?
This is affecting the stereo field. Exactly that. It's affecting the difference between the left and right.
I might see if I can get a little bit of different sound on the middle pickup selector. Let's see. What is that? Hum cancelling. No longer hum cancelling.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice. So, it sounds massive. Eric Johnson, Joe Bonamassa, when they have that, because they use those to split their amp, right? And they don't use that effect, like
Heavy,
that. But it's definitely. They say it gives them a width.
So it's some cross between a really small amount of chorus and heavy leaning on the Haas Effect.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, no?
So the Haas Effect is different because we're not separating by time the left and right. Left and right are there. Now we're separating the modulation by phase.
Okay.
So this ends up being a different thing. So it's like, oh, it does sound great. And if you go to the mono output, you're just getting that one side of modulation. It sounds great. But here's the issue. If you're a producer and someone's come in with this and they've recorded a guitar track and you go, well, that sounds really good, but I want the guitars, I just want them over on the left-hand side. So I need to mix those two signals together, right? What I'm going to do while you play, I'm going to mix outputs left and right from the stereo chorus flanger together and just go dual mono.
Okay.
Right?
I think I understand. It's still a really cool sound, but it's totally different.
Totally different.
Yeah.
What's happened there is I've taken those two outputs and I've mixed them together, right? But because the modulation are out of phase with each other, when you mix them together, they cancel out. So that big sense of depth and everything that you get is gone. So as a producer, if you're recording that left and right, go, that's really great, but I need to sum them together and put them on the left-hand side, you lose that sense of space because that modulation has cancelled each other out.
When I use it in my rig, I use it wet dry and I have it on pitch modulation for, I'm assuming, for real chorus because I only have it in one side.
Yeah, right. There you go.
So in pitch modulation, does it kill the dry sound?
Let's try.
Yeah, you play, mate.
So now if you turn them off, they're left and right off one at a time. So it's still there.
It's still doing it on both sides.
Yeah.
Okay,
Nice.
cool. So just hang on, go back to that again. I just want to hear if by going into chorus mode, what we're doing is we're adding the dry back in.
Okay. So you go left.
That's all right, just stay on the left.
That is awesome.
And then without it. Sorry, that was just a bit of an interlude to hear some lovely fullness.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's so good. That's so good.
Wet, dry, wet with the TC electronic and the stereo delay. So it was all going on there.
Yeah. And because the center amp, it comes before any modulation, you're just getting the, you've got the overdrive pedal, but that's it.
Yeah.
So it'll get the clean sound or the overdrive pedal.
Demonstrate that just for 2 seconds. So what I'm going to do is you'll hear exactly the sound you just heard. I'll turn the 2 outside amps off so you only hear the center amp. Dan's having a proper moment.
Boy, oh boy.
It's quite the noise, isn't it?
Oh, far out, man.
That is quite the noise.
No, it's... This is the rabbit hole I've gone down, right? Because it's like, how I don't know if I can go back from this.
And then you'll be tempted to say in the comments, well, you can't hear it in a mix or doesn't work in a band. It flipping does.
It really does. It really does. Okay,
you can't record it. No, you probably wouldn't record all of that. You would do it in a different way. But
I'm ordering another 2 ISO cabs. I can't not do it.
Oh, dear.
Right. So we now come to the boss level.
So stage 1, dry and affected.
Yes.
Stage 2, too dry and too affected.
Yes.
And phase.
Yes. And to say, look, there's the stereo chorus flanger isn't the only one that does this. Another really good one. This is the Ibanez SC10 stereo chorus.
So this was the pedal that somebody brought in, wasn't it?
Someone brought this in, and I heard it. I'm like, that sounds amazing. And so I went out and bought one.
No, you didn't.
And no, we bought one.
I bought one.
You bought.
I went on to Reverb that minute and bought one because you were so blown away by it.
Okay.
Well, we paid for it.
Okay, I was going to say, that was very generous of you, but that's very generous of us.
We
Thank you
paid
very
for
much. Yes, so paid for it. But it uses the same idea where the secondary
as the SCF.
As exactly that. And
does it sound similar?
Yeah, they all have their own thing.
Yeah.
But the concept is the same.
Because 1 millisecond delay time difference.
Yeah, and
the shape of the wave.
shape of the wave. Well, it's exactly that. It's the way that the center delay time point is. So obviously it'll go above and below that.
Yeah.
And the shape of the
What
wave.
is the swing? So if your center delay time is 20 milliseconds, what's the swing?
Well, it depends on how... the swing is determined by the depth.
Is it 5 milliseconds if it's full up, or is it 10?
Well, if you... that all depends on the pedal, but if you imagine that your center point is 20 milliseconds, right? If my depth goes below to 10 and up to say 40, I'm getting an octave either side.
Yeah, right.
Which is why some choruses and flanges will have a center point for the delay time.
So it's a few milliseconds.
Yeah.
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 I was just thinking
literally
about a range. It's not like up to 100 and down to 0. It's a few milliseconds.
It's a few, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You can simulate this, by the way. If you've got a delay pedal with a continuously variable delay time, you can just knock it back between 18 and 22 and hear the effect, can't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a great way to do it. Yeah, but that concept of the phase flip, it was a inexpensive way to add an extra sense of depth to a stereo chorus, because all they needed to do was add an inverting buffer on one side. But then there was an expensive way to do expensive chorus. Right. This is the Dimension C, the DC2 Wazza. This came along after the SDD 300, is it, I believe?
The Dimension D.
The SDD 320. Anyway, the Dimension D, the rack unit.
Rack mount.
And it was the secret weapon for a long time for a lot of producers.
It's on so much stuff in
really
the 80s
is,
especially.
Yeah. So, what the Dimension D did...
Dan just burped, by the way, which is why that cut was there. And he's now laughing like a 5-year-old because he burped.
And it was a small, annoying little... Right, what the Dimension D did and the Dimension C did, that was different. Instead of taking your modulated delay line and flipping the phase, they had a second delay line that went to the second output. But there is only one clock for both delay lines.
Okay, so just to confirm then, in the CE2, the CE1, all the way up to the stereo chorus flanger, we're still only dealing with one delay line.
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
now we've added another delay line.
Now we've added another delay line. But what the Dimension C does that is so clever, the clock controls the sort of the modulation of it controls the speed of the delay,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And by modulating that clock, you get the modulation of your delay. And if it is, you can go faster rate and bigger depth and all the stuff just by modulating the clock time.
Sure.
Right? How quick you modulate it and how far you modulate it.
Mm.
But what the Dimension C does is that single clock, it modulates the delay time on the left and it modulates exactly out of phase the delay time on the right. So the signals aren't out of phase, but the modulation is out of phase. So that when one is pushing, the other is pulling, and vice versa. So you
just recap how that differs from the SCF, because I'm a bit confused. I thought that's what the SCF was doing.
So the SCF, it's the audio that's out of phase.
Yeah.
Right? So what that means is...
The delayed audio.
The delayed audio,
Yeah.
right? That modulated audio then gets put through a phase inverter.
Yeah.
Right? And that difference of phase gives us our width.
Yeah.
What the Dimension C does, it doesn't change the phase of the audio, it changes the phase of the modulation.
The modulation, yeah, okay.
So that when one is pushing, the other is pulling.
Yeah.
Right?
Zag, zig, and zigzag.
Absolutely.
Yeah. For all you skiers out there.
And what is so interesting about that effect is you don't get that, seasicky, heavy modulation chorus thing, because you get this sense of sort of widening and narrowing as opposed to, going up and down. So, and I'll demonstrate that in a minute, because when you combine those two outputs together, you still get this beautiful Dimension C sound, because you don't get any phase cancellation, but it's just that modulation that's out of phase. So if you play for a sec.
Okay, I think it's Stratocaster o'clock.
Indeed.
Much love for the Casino with its Lola pickups.
Yeah.
I do flipping love that guitar.
It is. It's awesome.
But I sort of feel a bit unwell if there's not a Strat.
Certainly with this effect.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're just going to go to the outside pair for the moment, all right? And then I'm going to add in the Dimension C in stereo.
Yeah.
Now listen to what happens when I sum those outputs together.
Okay.
Okay. So it's still all there.
You retain it, but it's just
You
not
retain
as
it,
wide.
but you don't get the width because the magic of the stereo-ness of the Dimension C. You see how we're not getting that warble, we're not getting that difference between output 1 and output 2. I can sum those lines together, and we're still getting this beautiful modulation. Now, what's amazing is when we do that and put a center amp in.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So just have a play.
Insanio.
But you don't with the Dimension, because you've got that opposite and equal modulation. You lose that sense of wobbliness.
Yeah.
You know, so I think a lot of producers, when they put on their tracks, and things just got wider.
Yeah. And then, of course, if you've got it on a bus, when you're... Because at the moment, it's very prominent, because we've got it loud. There's no depth control on the DC2 there. And there wasn't on the rack unit either.
No.
So in order to use it as an outboard piece of gear, you'd probably stick it on a bus, stereo bus, and then you could mix it in.
Sure. So those 4 buttons there, so on the original, all the button did was kick in a pair of resistors. The first 2 had the same depth, and you had 2 different rates. No, first 2 had the same rate, 2 different depths. The second pair had, again, a different rate, another 2 different depths. So by putting on foot switch 1, you had 1 pair of resistors, 2, it had a different pair of resistors in, and you got those set depth and rate settings.
Yeah.
I guess I think, I don't know, but I think they said we've run out of room. Because if you look, there is so much going on in there, and they said, okay, well, we can afford 4 buttons, and that's it.
Oh, I see. So
but it, it's like, it's such a magic sound.
have some Schwang, and I'll have a switch through the 3, and we can hear them all. I'll turn the center amp on and off. And
yeah, great.
It'll just give you, hopefully, an idea of what's happening in this stereo field in the center, and the sounds of the 3 different approaches to a chorus. There you go, mate. You should be on. Awesomeness.
It is a sound that you can just get so lost in. It's brilliant.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah, it really does.
It sounds really nice.
Yeah.
What's it based on?
It's based on one of their pedals called the Tone Press EQ.
Yeah.
So sorry, I forget the gentleman's name, but he just
David.
said... It was David, yes.
David Barber.
David Barber. Sorry, no. It was another David that turned up to the...
Oh, okay.
I meant the guy from the Experience Day. But David Barber...
Yeah.
Who I've been corresponding with, I said, gentleman's turned up with this and I simply have to have one. And he had the old version, like the big 2-button thing.
They were square. Weren't they square enclosures for a while, the Barber pedals? Yeah.
And he said, well, we'll do this in custom enclosures now. I said, but I'll make it so it sounds exactly like that. And I went, it won't be the same. But he was sent pictures of the internals of the original pedal with the positions of the trim pots and everything, and that turned up, and it's so good. I am delighted to finally have a Barber pedal on the show.
Yeah, it's been too long. We've probably just caused a massitive problem for David Barber there, because people will be going, "Can I have one of those, please?"
Yeah, but it's wonderful, really
wicked,
wonderful.
man. That was fascinating. I hope it was clear. We took our time. Dan took his time to try and explain those 3 approaches to stereo chorus, which is essentially wet dry, and then 2 versions of stereo,
and then wet dry wet, and that. But the thing that, like, the modulation on either side and that one right in the middle, it just, honestly, it's the sound that stops me from sleeping at night.
It is,
you know what I mean?
And if it sounds like the 80s to you, there's a good reason for that.
Yeah, it's just magic. Magic.
Yeah. Happy days. Nice.
Happy days. Well, thank you so much for watching. A massive thank you to anyone that's gone to thatpedalshowstore.com and grabbed some merch, and also to anyone that's gone to That Pedal Shop in the US.
Yes, go to That Pedal Shop. Fast and free shipping to the lower 48.
Nice.
I think is, yeah. And Canada too. Maybe not free, but anyway.
I didn't know you did regional accents. That's very good.
Yeah, that was Caliexis Orc.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
very good.
That was that accent.
Okay,
yeah.
Great.
Yes, and also thank you to our exclusive preferred retailers. You can see those in the links below in the description, and patrons on Patreon.
Indeed.
Please go to patreon.com/thatpedalshow. Podcasts of our VCQ on Mondays for you folks, and also monthly giveaways. So patreon.com/thatpedalshow.
I actually think we've done a board where you can get most of the things that are on it.
Oh yeah,
which is amazing.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Happy days.
Miracles do happen. Thanks so much. Have a great day, and we'll see you on Monday for viewers, comments, and questions.
Cheerio.
Bye.